Chapter 8. Existentialism and Society. 8.1 The Individual in Society. The relationship between individuality and society is a profound theme within existentialist thought. Existentialism, a philosophical movement that came to prominence in the 20th century, primarily focuses on the analysis of human existence, the centrality of human choice, and the subjective nature of reality. As a result, existential philosophers have sought to understand how society impacts the individual's sense of self and freedom. The purpose of this section is to explore this relationship from various angles, beginning with the assertion of the individual's innate freedom and responsibility. The fundamental tenet of existentialism is that existence precedes essence, meaning that the human being comes into existence first and only subsequently defines their essence through actions. Therefore, in the context of society, the individual is often faced with social roles and norms that may be at odds with their self-chosen path. Jean-Paul Sartre, a leading existential philosopher, posited that people are condemned to be free. That is, they are forced to choose and define their essence in every moment without the guidance of any intrinsic nature or predetermined criteria. This existential freedom is at once liberating and burdensome, as it demands continuous creation and reevaluation of the self within the societal framework. The individual's existence in society entails a negotiation between personal freedom and societal constraints. Sartre and other existential thinkers like Simone de Beauvoir highlighted the constant struggle against bad faith, a condition where individuals deceive themselves into believing that their societal roles and obligations wholly dictate their identity. This self-deception leads to the neglect of personal freedom and responsibility. Hence, for the individual, authentic existence necessitates recognizing and embracing the freedom to go beyond society's prescriptions and to act in a way that is true to one's own values and beliefs. Nevertheless, the exercise of personal freedom does not occur in isolation. Existentialism acknowledges that humans are inherently social beings, être pour autrui, or being for others in Sartrean terms. Individuals realize their own potential and identities through relationships with others. Thus, societal structure and others' perceptions play significant roles in the individual's quest for self-definition. The interaction between individual action and societal response is a constant dialogue, in which society acts as both a mirror and a mold for personal identity. The existential perspective is notably critical of reducing individuals to mere functions within a social machine. Friedrich Nietzsche, often considered a precursor to existentialism, criticized the herd mentality that suppresses individuality and discourages people from breaking free from conventional morality to create their own values. Likewise, Sartre and Albert Camus questioned societal structures that aim to subsume the individual under collective identities or causes. The existentialist ideal promotes the view that each person should not only be treated as an individual, but should also recognize and accept the responsibility that comes with their innate freedom within society. Existentialism also contemplates the role of authenticity in the individual's societal existence. To be authentic, from an existential standpoint, is to act in accordance with one's own understanding of their existence and to resist conforming to roles that are externally imposed. The challenge lies in balancing the societal pressure to conform against personal aspirations and beliefs. In this dynamic, conversely, society can also benefit from individuals who exercise their freedom authentically, for such actions can lead to cultural and social renewal. It is often through the actions of authentic individuals that societal norms are questioned and reformed. Even as they emphasize individual freedom and authenticity, existentialists do not dismiss the importance of social structures and cultural values. They recognize that individuals are inexorably shaped by the language, customs, and institutions of their society. Thus, while the individual's fundamental freedom is irreducible, the expression of that freedom is invariably influenced by social context. An existentialist view encourages a critical examination of this context to discern the ways in which it may foster or hinder genuine freedom and personal growth. To an existentialist, society plays a dual role in the life of an individual. On the one hand, it can be seen as a limiting force, a set of circumstances that the individual must navigate and, at times, transcend. On the other hand, society is also the ground upon which individuals may exercise their freedom, find meaning in their actions, and gauge their effectiveness in the world. The individual and society are in a constant interplay. The society shapes the individual, and the individual, at their most authentic, informs and sometimes reshapes society. Establishing a balance between the individual's quest for authenticity and the realities of social living is a pervasive theme in existentialism. Individuals are encouraged to pursue their personal freedom and to accept the weight of their choices, but they must also consider the social dimension of their existence. What an individual chooses to do inevitably affects others, and thus the concept of responsibility extends beyond the personal sphere into the collective domain. Actions carry weight because they take place within a shared world, where every individual's freedom intersects with and can impact the freedom of others. Existentialist philosophy provides a robust framework for understanding the intricate relationship between the individual and society. While it emphasizes personal freedom and the responsibility of individuals to shape their own lives, it also recognizes that this process is deeply interwoven with the societal context. The individual's pursuit of authenticity, meaning, and freedom is both a personal journey and a societal endeavor. The existentialist narrative is one that continuously evolves as individuals navigate their unique paths within the collective, constantly seeking a balance between self-determination and communal existence. 8.2 Social Structures and Existence. The relationship between existentialism and social structures is both complex and profound. Existentialism, a philosophical movement concerned with the individual's experience of freedom, choice, and responsibility, stands in a compelling dialogue with the way social frameworks shape human lives. Social structures, the patterns of relationships and social arrangements that organize society, are often seen as external forces that limit individual autonomy and freedom. This tension between individual existence and societal constraints is a central theme in existentialist thought. While these structures ostensibly serve to maintain order and facilitate social interactions, existentialists argue that they can also impose limitations on personal freedom and authenticity. On one hand, social structures provide individuals with a sense of stability and continuity. They define roles, prescribe patterns of behavior, and offer a framework within which people can pursue their lives. Social institutions such as government, education, and religion play pivotal roles in shaping values, norms, and expectations. They influence our understanding of right and wrong, success and failure, and our place in the world. This can be beneficial in creating a cohesive community with shared values and goals. However, it can equally result in a sense of alienation and estrangement when an individual's personal beliefs or desires do not align with societal expectations. An existentialist perspective suggests that social structures tend to obscure the individual's perception of their fundamental freedom. Rather than recognizing the inherent ability to make choices and define their own being, individuals may feel pressured to conform to pre-established roles and patterns. Jean-Paul Sartre, a leading existentialist thinker, posited that one's existence precedes essence. Essentially, this means that an individual defines their essence through the exercise of their free will and not by merely fulfilling societal roles. The institutionalization of societal norms can lead individuals to experience a sense of bad faith, where they deny their freedom by adopting values and identities ascribed to them unduly by society. The phenomenon of bad faith characterizes the existentialist concern with authenticity. Being authentic involves recognizing and embracing one's freedom and responsibility to make genuinely personal decisions. Yet, the entrenchment of social structures often hampers this pursuit, pressuring individuals to act in inauthentic ways that betray their true selves and desires. In an existential framework, personal authenticity and autonomy stand as the ideals to which individuals should aspire, often demanding resistance to conformist pressures exerted by society. This resistance is not an easy feat. It requires courage and at times results in isolation or conflict. Existentialism highlights the role of individual agency within social contexts. While acknowledging that social structures inevitably shape individuals, existentialists call attention to the possibility of transcending these influences through conscious choice and action. The ability to critically evaluate and potentially transform the social world is an essential component of existential agency. Individuals can assert their essence by challenging the given circumstances and, where possible, reforming or rejecting oppressive social structures. The process of social change relies heavily on the capacity for individual and collective agency. Social structures are not static. They are continuously constructed and reconstructed through human actions and interactions. Historical examples of existentialist influence on societal change include the dismantling of colonial empires and the push for civil rights. Recognizing the interplay between individual existence and societal structures provides a basis for understanding the potential for societal transformation. However, the paradox that many existentialists address is the realization that while systems can be altered, any new structure will likely also carry its own limitations to individual freedom. Engagement in social relationships is another area where societal structures intersect with existentialist concerns. Relationships are fundamental to human existence and can greatly enrich one's experience of life. They provide love, support, and a sense of belonging. Yet, they also introduce expectations and demands that can conflict with personal freedom and authenticity. Balancing the desire for deep connections with others against the need for self-definition is one of the challenges identified by existentialists. A life lived in accordance with existential values may require redefining or renegotiating relationship dynamics that restrict individuals' existential freedom. Education is another social structure deeply interwoven with existential themes. It transmits cultural values and knowledge, equipping individuals to function within society. Nonetheless, existentialists caution against educational systems that only prepare students to conform to established roles, rather than fostering critical thinking and independent thought. The true transformative potential of education lies in its ability to encourage individuals to question, to seek personal meaning, and to develop the capacity for self-definition beyond societal dictates. Existentialism's focus on individual freedom and responsibility necessarily extends to political structures. A society's political system can either facilitate or constrain the pursuit of authentic existence. Democratic systems theoretically promote individual agency by allowing for the participation and representation of diverse interests and values. In contrast, authoritarian regimes often suppress personal freedoms in favor of a homogenizing ideology. The existentialist emphasis on personal freedom positions them as advocates for political systems that maximize individual liberty and provide opportunities for authentic engagement with society. While social structures are omnipresent and influential in shaping human existence, existentialism empowers individuals to recognize and enact their agency within these constraints. It challenges them to continuously reflect on their relationship with society and to seek personal authenticity amidst external pressures. The dynamic interplay between one's inner world and the outer social world is where existential questions find their most potent expression, stirring individuals to navigate their path constructively and consciously. Existentialism does not provide a straightforward solution to the tension between individual and society. Rather, it offers a perspective that emphasizes the ongoing negotiation between these realms as central to human existence. 8.3. Existentialism and Anarchism. Anarchism as a political philosophy contends that hierarchies and authoritarian structures are inherently oppressive and that society could function without them through self-governance and voluntary associations. In exploring the relationship between existentialism and anarchism, it is crucial to recognize the shared values of autonomy, freedom, and individual responsibility. Both movements reject deterministic views of human nature, proposing instead that individuals have the capacity to define their own existence and social order. Existentialist thought, embodied in the works of philosophers such as Jean-Paul Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir, often emphasizes the individual's confrontation with the absurd, the acknowledgement of the inherent meaninglessness of life, and the consequent imperative to create meaning through action. Importantly, existentialism does not advocate for any specific social or political order, but instead underscores personal freedom and choice. This focus on individual agency aligns existentialism with anarchism's push for a society where individuals freely determine the course of their lives without external coercion. Proponents of anarchism often call for the dismantling of the state and other institutional powers, arguing that this is a necessary step to achieve genuine freedom and equality. They believe that authority, unless justified, should be dismantled, and individuals should be free to organize their lives and communities as they see fit. Echoing this sentiment, existentialist thinkers posit that individuals must resist being defined by societal structures or succumbing to what Sartre termed bad faith, the denial of freedom through self-deception or conformity to roles imposed by society. Sartre's concept of bad faith intersects meaningfully with anarchist thought. By challenging individuals to live authentically, to actively acknowledge and embrace their freedom, Sartre's existentialism suggests a form of living that is resistant to the systemic imposition of roles and values. Anarchism shares this resistance, advocating for environments where individuals are not automatically subsumed by predetermined societal categories, but can create and recreate themselves and their associations based on their free will and mutual consent. That both existentialism and anarchism are critical of transcendental or absolute structures is central to understanding their relationship. For existentialists, myths of a predetermined essence or given human nature are barriers to authentic existence. Anarchists similarly critique ideological systems that claim natural hierarchies or the inevitability of certain social structures, seeing in these the justification for inequality and oppression. Both existentialists and anarchists thus seek to dismantle conceptual frameworks that strip individuals of their ability to define their existence. However, the alignment between existentialism and anarchism is not an exact fit. While existentialists emphasize individual choice and responsibility, they do not necessarily prescribe a specific political model as a corollary of these principles. In contrast, anarchists explicitly advocate for the abolition of the state and capital as means to facilitate individual autonomy. Existentialism's individualism is, therefore, compatible with anarchism, but it does not inherently call for the anarchists' revolutionary social restructuring. Despite this, some thinkers such as Emma Goldman and Mikhail Bakunin have applied existentialist ideas to their anarchist philosophies. They assert that the pursuit of personal autonomy and self-definition should be the foundation of societal structures. Their views suggest that an anarchist society, unburdened by oppressive institutions, would provide a fertile ground for the existential pursuit of meaning and individual freedom. The dialogue between existentialism and anarchism often hinges on the concept of responsibility. Existentialists argue that the acknowledgement of freedom comes with an inherent responsibility towards one's own authenticity and towards others, as human actions inevitably affect the world. Anarchism extends this responsibility to the social and political realms, advocating a responsible exercise of freedom that accounts for the well-being of others and opposes exploitation and domination. Anarchism's critique of private property and capitalism can find a counterpart in existentialist critiques of consumerism and its impact on individual authenticity. The commodification of human relations and the reduction of individuals to their functions within a capitalist economy resonate with the existentialist perception of inauthentic modes of being. While not all existentialists oppose capitalism outright, they critique the way it can promote inauthenticity and alienation from one's genuine desires and values. Finally, the existentialist ethos of creating one's essence through action complements the anarchist emphasis on direct action and prefigurative politics, the practice of embodying one's ideals and structures in the present. Both existentialism and anarchism distrust abstract theorizing, divorced from lived experience and action. In their focus on the immediacy of human life and the potential to construct meaning and order through proactive engagement, they present a united front against fatalism and passivity, encouraging individuals to actively shape their world in accordance with their freely chosen values and beliefs. Although these philosophical traditions have nuanced differences, the synergy between existentialist thought and anarchist principles highlights the quest for a society where individuals can authentically realize their potential in communion with others, free from oppressive and deterministic structures. This synthesis calls for an ongoing evaluation of the ethical implications of individual freedom and societal organization, ensuring that the pursuit of autonomy does not become isolated self-interest, but rather a collective stride towards a more equitable and liberated human experience. 8.4. Critique of Capitalism. The existential critique of capitalism is built upon the foundations of individual freedom and authenticity, principles that are deeply rooted in existentialist philosophy. Historically, existential thinkers have often perceived capitalism as a system that encourages the commodification of human beings and their labor, reducing persons to mere instruments in economic transactions. One of the primary contentions is that capitalism, as a social and economic order, has the tendency to depersonalize and alienate individuals from their essence and from one another by emphasizing profit and efficiency over human value and creativity. Existentialism asserts the importance of personal choice, individual responsibility, and the quest for meaning. However, capitalism, particularly in its modern forms, often fosters a culture where external achievements, such as wealth accumulation and social status, overshadow personal growth. This external focus can lead individuals to neglect their inner development and existential concerns. In alignment with this view, existential critiques argue that the capitalist framework may constrain the individual's search for authentic existence because the system imposes certain goals and values that are not necessarily aligned with one's personal identity. An existential critique points out that capitalism often creates a homogenizing effect on society. Through mass production and mass media, individual differences can be overshadowed by a push toward uniformity. This can be seen in consumer culture, where the drive to consume can overshadow the pursuit of personal authenticity. In this context, products and services are marketed in a way that suggests possession equates to self-realization, misleading individuals away from genuine self-discovery. The role of work under capitalism is another area of existential concern. While existential thought champions the idea that meaningful labor can be an expression of one's essence, capitalism is often criticized for transforming labor into a means of survival rather than a source of personal fulfillment. Jobs are frequently evaluated based on economic outcome rather than the satisfaction or growth they provide the worker. This utilitarian approach can lead to a workforce that is disengaged and disenfranchised, challenging the notion that work can significantly contribute to the actualization of the self. Capitalism's competitive nature is also at odds with existentialist ideals. Competition can engender a sense of constant comparison and rivalry, which may diminish the intrinsic value of individual actions by prioritizing success over process. As individuals strive for economic success, they may forsake existential authenticity, which is predicated not on external validation, but on an inwardly derived sense of purpose and self-consistency. The relentless pursuit of success can prompt people to adopt roles and behaviors that conform to societal expectations rather than their own personal convictions. Furthermore, existential philosophy promotes the idea of living an intentional life, but the unpredictable quality of market forces in capitalism can make it difficult for individuals to plan and live intentionally. The volatility inherent in capitalist economies can generate a sense of insecurity and existential anxiety, as livelihoods and the ability to make free, informed choices can be severely impacted by economic downturns and market fluctuations that are beyond individual control. Another existential perspective is concerned with how capitalism can affect interpersonal relationships. Within a capitalist society, social interactions can become commodified, leading to relationships that are transactional rather than genuine. This reduction of human relationships to mere exchanges of goods and services can be at odds with the existential commitment to authentic connections, which are seen as essential for a meaningful human existence. The pervasive influence of capitalism on cultural norms and societal structures can further lead to what existentialists describe as bad faith, a state where individuals deceive themselves to avoid the anxiety of confronting the freedom and responsibility inherent in their existence. In the capitalist context, bad faith might manifest as a denial of personal agency due to the overwhelming power of economic systems, or as the acceptance of consumerism as a substitute for personal meaning and self-creation. Moreover, capitalism tends to prioritize short-term gains over long-term well-being, which can not only be detrimental to the environment, but also to the psychological and moral development of individuals. Capitalism's emphasis on immediate gratification can eclipse the deeper existential questions surrounding the long-term consequences of personal and collective actions. This framework can encourage a disconnect from a future-oriented, responsible approach to living, which is central to existentialism. Finally, existentialists argue that capitalism can lead to a diminished sense of community and shared responsibility. As individuals focus on personal advancement, the sense of collective accountability and togetherness may wane, leading to social fragmentation. In this scenario, the individual's sense of belonging and their responsibility to others are compromised, which runs counter to existential ideals of collective freedom and mutual recognition. The existential critique of capitalism revolves around its potential to compromise the individual's search for authenticity, freedom, and meaningful existence. It emphasizes the risks of commodification, alienation, and the subordination of existential values to economic imperatives. The goal of existentialism is to advance awareness of these issues and encourage individuals to navigate their lives towards authenticity, despite societal pressures that may lead in the opposite direction. 8.5 The Existentialist in Politics. Existentialism, a philosophical movement that emphasizes individual existence, freedom, and choice, also extends its reach into the realm of politics. At its core, existentialist politics are concerned with the autonomy of the individual and how this autonomy confronts and interacts with societal structures and collective decision-making processes. Given the movement's emphasis on the individual's responsibility for creating their own essence through actions, existentialist thought reframes political engagement as a deeply personal undertaking. The existentialist approach to politics challenges the impersonal and often deterministic views of classic political theories, which may overlook the individual's subjective experience. Contrary to ideologies that place historical, economic, or class factors at the center, existential politics instead posits that individual choice and action fundamentally shape society. Consequently, the existentialist in politics is less likely to accept systemic explanations for social conditions without scrutinizing the individual's role within these systems. Moreover, existentialists reject the notion that political participation is solely rational and based on utilitarian calculations. They acknowledge that emotions, moods, and personal commitments often drive political action. For instance, an existentialist perspective recognizes feelings of anxiety and absurdity that may accompany political decision-making, suggesting these emotions are natural responses to the weight of complete freedom and the burden of responsibility inherent in political commitment. The political existentialist also frequently explores the balance between personal freedom and social responsibility. The challenge lies in reconciling the desire for individual authenticity with the needs of a community. When participating in politics, the existentialist tends to advocate for policies that maximize individual freedom while ensuring that each person is responsible for their actions. This dual consideration sometimes leads existentialists to support decentralized and participatory forms of governance, allowing individuals greater influence over their lives while emphasizing the communal implications of personal choices. Existentialism's engagement with politics is not limited to theory. Historically, prominent existentialist philosophers such as Jean-Paul Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir have actively engaged in political discourse and action. They believe that one's philosophy should not be detached from the world's realities, arguing that existentialism necessitates political involvement. As public intellectuals, they demonstrated the possibility of merging existentialist theory with practical political engagement, often commenting on contemporaneous events and espousing activism on behalf of marginalized populations. An existentialist political actor might argue against the idea that certain political outcomes are inevitable. They would refute the concept of historical determinism, suggesting instead that human beings, through their choices and actions, possess the agency to alter the course of history. This perspective often leads to a politics of possibility, focusing on empowerment and change rather than resignation to the status quo or fidelity to ideological dogma. The critique of totalitarianism is a significant aspect of existentialist political thought. Totalitarian regimes, by their nature, suppress individual freedom and autonomy, which are essential to existentialist philosophy. The existentialist in politics firmly opposes such governmental structures, promoting instead the idea that individual freedom and expression are fundamental to a healthy society. In this vein, existentialists are often skeptical of any political ideology that prescribes a fixed set of beliefs or a rigid societal framework. Another key concern for existentialists is the concept of authenticity in political life. Authenticity, a central theme in existential philosophy, challenges individuals to live in accordance with their self-acknowledged values and to avoid succumbing to external pressures. In political terms, this translates to resistance against conformist tendencies within political parties and movements, as well as an emphasis on transparency and integrity in political discourse. The existentialist envisions a political landscape where individuals feel free to express dissenting opinions and are not compelled to align with the majority view for expediency's sake. An existentialist view on politics also necessitates a reflection on the nature of power and its relationship to freedom. Power dynamics in a society can often hinder the individual's pursuit of authentic existence. Therefore, the existentialist in politics must always be attentive to the distribution and exercise of power, advocating for structures that do not diminish individual freedom or relegate individuals to the status of objects within a broader political machinery. A healthy political environment, from this perspective, is one in which power is balanced and diffused, ensuring that no single entity can dominate at the expense of individual autonomy. The existentialist in politics brings forth a nuanced and deeply personal approach to the political sphere. This approach is characterized by an emphasis on individual freedom and responsibility, an aversion to deterministic narratives, an enduring critique of totalitarianism, a steadfast commitment to authenticity, and a vigilant awareness of power dynamics. By integrating these principles into the realm of political action, existentialists contribute to shaping a society where individuals are empowered to forge their destinies while remaining mindful of their interconnectedness with the social fabric. 8.6 Existentialism and Education. Education occupies a significant place in the study and application of existentialist thought. Existentialism, as a philosophy that emphasizes individual existence, personal freedom, and choice, has profound implications for educational practices and theories. The existentialist approach to education centers around fostering autonomy and the development of the self. It is an approach where the learner's subjective experience is the starting point of education. Firstly, existentialist education challenges the traditional view that knowledge is a fixed set of facts to be transferred from the teacher to the student. Instead, it posits that knowledge is intertwined with the personal experiences and context of the learner. Thus, it emphasizes that education should not be about the passive absorption of information, but about active engagement with ideas and the construction of meaning by the learner. This engagement requires teachers to facilitate learning rather than merely deliver content. Teachers who embrace existentialist principles focus on encouraging students to question, critique, and understand their relationship with the subjects they study. In this environment, learning is not just about memorization, but about applying critical thinking to new situations. The existentialist educator aims to help students realize how knowledge affects their own lives and shapes their individual values and beliefs. Such a perspective moves away from standardized testing and rigid curricula, instead promoting individualized learning paths. Existentialism in education also implies that students must take responsibility for their learning. In an existentialist classroom, students are encouraged to make choices about their educational journey, be it through the selection of topics, the pace of their learning, or the methods through which they engage with material. It is believed that by having the power to make decisions, students become more invested and more likely to find relevance and meaning in what they study, contributing to a more authentic learning experience. Moreover, existentialist education is deeply concerned with the concept of authenticity. This is the idea that one should act in accordance with one's own sense of self, beliefs, and values, rather than conform to external expectations. Education, from an existentialist viewpoint, should thus encourage learners to explore and define their own identities. This comes through the cultivation of self-awareness, reflection, and personal expression within educational settings. Furthermore, existentialist educators often incorporate the study of existentialist thinkers into the curriculum to provide students with tools to grapple with the universal concerns of human existence. By engaging with the writings of philosophers such as Kierkegaard, Nietzsche, Sartre, and Camus, students are prompted to consider profound questions about life, freedom, and the human condition. This kind of engagement can foster a deeper intellectual and emotional development among students. One of the challenges of existentialist education is the balance between individual freedom and the necessary structure within educational systems. An existentialist teacher aims to create a learning environment that accommodates individual differences while still providing a coherent framework within which learners can operate. It requires a nuanced understanding of each student's needs and a flexibility that may seem at odds with conventional educational models. Existentialist education also highlights the role of uncertainty and ambiguity as essential components of the learning process. It rejects the notion that everything can be known and understood fully. Accepting uncertainty can drive critical inquiry and stimulate a lifelong pursuit of knowledge and self-improvement. By allowing for ambiguity, existentialist education embraces the complexity of human life and thought, which can empower students to face the unknown with resilience and adaptability. Another essential aspect of existentialism in education is the teacher-student relationship. The existentialist teacher is viewed less as an authoritative figure and more as a guide or mentor. This educator respects the individuality of each student, and communication is typically dialogical, encouraging mutual understanding and respect. The power dynamic shifts from domination to cooperation, which can foster more profound communication and understanding in the classroom. In summary, existentialist education is characterized by its non-dogmatic, flexible, and individual-centered approach, encouraging students to seek their own answers and form their own beliefs. It challenges both teachers and learners to consider the broader implications of education on personal growth and existence. This philosophical perspective on education is significant because it endeavors to produce not only knowledgeable individuals, but also reflective and autonomous persons who are capable of navigating the complexities of life. The implementation of existentialist concepts into educational practice holds transformative potential. However, it requires educators to be deeply reflective about their own beliefs and approaches to teaching. It also requires educational systems to be open to change, supporting less rigid structures and more personalized learning experiences. Ultimately, existentialist education represents a profound acknowledgement of the unique potential and freedom of every individual in their pursuit of knowledge and personal meaning. 8.7 Social Justice and Existential Ethics. Social justice is a broad and complex concept, encompassing the idea that all individuals deserve fair treatment and an equal share of the benefits of society. It is deeply intertwined with notions of rights, equality, and equity. From an existentialist perspective, social justice becomes a personal responsibility and an ethical imperative rooted not in abstract principles, but in the concrete experiences and freedoms of individuals. Existentialism asserts that individuals are free to make choices, and with that freedom comes the responsibility to choose in ways that affirm the value and dignity of all persons. The existential approach to ethics emphasizes the subjectivity and context of moral decision-making. Existentialists reject the view that moral principles are universally applicable, regardless of context. Instead, they argue that ethical decisions must be made in recognition of the unique circumstances of each situation and the individuals involved. This does not mean that anything goes. Rather, it suggests that decisions are more authentic when they arise from a sincere consideration of one's situation and the potential impact on others. In terms of social justice, an existential ethic demands awareness of the societal structures that influence and often limit individuals' experiences and freedom. Existentialists do not accept society as a given. They are critical of social structures that perpetuate inequality and advocate for action to change them. Recognizing that one's own freedom is inextricably linked to the freedom of others, existentialism calls for a commitment to challenge systems of oppression. This commitment is not a passive acceptance of moral codes, but an active engagement in the struggle for a more just society. Existentialism promotes authenticity, which in the context of social justice implies living truthfully in response to the reality of inequities in society. Authenticity requires individuals to acknowledge their role within social systems, including their complicity in injustices, and to take responsibility for their choices and actions within that framework. An authentic existence is characterized by moral courage, the willingness to confront discomfort and challenge the status quo. This concept plays a critical role in motivating individuals to work towards social justice. At the heart of existential ethics is the concept of bad faith, a term used to describe the denial of one's own freedom and responsibility. In the realm of social justice, living in bad faith can manifest as ignoring systemic inequalities or accepting them as unchangeable. To avoid bad faith, individuals must recognize both their own agency and the social forces at play. Moreover, they must be willing to use their freedom responsibly to address and rectify injustice. Existential ethics also places great importance on empathy, the ability to understand and share the feelings of others. Empathy is not merely an emotional response, it is an ethical stance that recognizes the humanity of others and is moved to act accordingly. For existentialists, empathy is a foundation for ethical relations because it affirms the other as a free subject and encourages actions that respect their freedom and well-being. In terms of social justice, empathy compels individuals to fight against oppression, as it is understood as denying others their full humanity. Another key element in existential ethics is the concept of the other, which highlights the relational dimension of being. In the social justice context, the other pertains to those who are marginalized, oppressed, or otherwise excluded from full participation in society. For existentialists, genuine ethical action must always consider the other and strive to treat them as ends in themselves, not merely as means to an end. Ethical behavior in an existential sense involves acknowledging the otherness of the other, without seeking to dominate or assimilate them into one's own identity. The existentialist emphasis on individual choice has significant implications for social activism. Social justice, from this standpoint, is not just a societal goal, but also a personal journey of becoming aware and taking responsibility for one's actions. Activism, therefore, must come from a place of conscious choice and understanding, rather than external obligation or pressure. The existentialist approach encourages activists to reflect on their motives and the authenticity of their commitments, fostering a form of activism that is deeply personal and self-reflective. Existentialism rejects absolute determinism, embracing the notion that individuals have the capacity to change society. Even when societal structures seem rigid and overwhelming, the existentialist perspective holds that individual and collective action can make a difference. This view encourages those who seek social justice to persist in their efforts, notwithstanding the complexity and magnitude of the challenges they face. The belief in the power of individual agency serves to stimulate ongoing commitment to social justice endeavors. Existential ethics offers a distinctive approach to social justice that emphasizes personal responsibility, freedom, authenticity, and a deep consideration of the humanity of others. It highlights the individual's place within social structures and promotes active engagement to transform those structures where they perpetuate injustice. While existentialism does not provide a systematic set of ethical rules, it compels individuals to confront moral ambiguity and make choices that affirm their own freedom and the freedom of others. Accordingly, existential ethics calls for a commitment to social justice grounded in the lived experiences of individuals and characterized by genuine empathy and respect for the other. 8.8 The role of technology. In the context of existentialism, technology is a crucial element influencing modern human existence. It shapes our experiences, forms our interactions, and has a profound impact on our sense of self and the world around us. Historically, existentialist thinkers like Martin Heidegger and Jean-Paul Sartre grappled with the implications of technology long before the digital age. Heidegger, in particular, posed critical inquiries about the nature of technology and its relationship with being. He warned against what he termed the enframing nature of technology, which risks reducing the world to mere resources for consumption and use. Such a perspective can obscure the intrinsic value of life and the inherent worth of beings. In today's society, technology has progressed exponentially, touching nearly every aspect of life. This ubiquity poses new questions about autonomy and authenticity, key concepts in existential thought. Smartphones, social media, and artificial intelligence create environments that can both limit and expand individual freedom. While these devices and platforms offer unprecedented access to information and connectivity, they also can dictate how time is spent, thereby influencing one's project, their authentic pursuit of personal goals and values. The underlying algorithms that drive our engagement with technology often aim to maximize user retention and commercial profit, which can manipulate choices and create a facade of autonomy. Furthermore, technology impacts our approach to existential anxiety, or the angst that arises from confronting the inherent uncertainty of existence. The ceaseless stream of information and entertainment provided by the Internet can serve as a distraction from confronting existential questions. The easiness with which we can divert our attention from introspection to digital content may reduce our capacity to engage in deep reflective thought, an exercise that existentialists believe is vital for authentic living. Nevertheless, technology also has the potential to aid in the quest for personal meaning. If individuals use technology mindfully, recognizing its influence on their existence, it can become a tool for personal growth and self-understanding. For instance, online educational resources can provide knowledge that enables individuals to transcend their given situations and pursue their chosen paths. Virtual communities offer support and connection for those isolated by geography or circumstance, allowing them to enact their freedom by forging meaningful relationships that would otherwise be impossible. The relationship between individual agency and technology remains complex. Technology has a propensity to obscure human responsibility, as it can foster a perception of actions being the result of systems or programs beyond our control. This displacement of accountability is at odds with existentialist emphasis on personal responsibility. Existentialists assert that individuals must acknowledge and accept the weight of their freedom, including the decisions they make in interaction with technology. As technology becomes more sophisticated, particularly with advancements in artificial intelligence that mimic human decision-making, the distinction between human choice and technological influence becomes more blurred, challenging existential notions of authenticity. Simultaneously, technology can enhance personal agency if leveraged appropriately. Access to a global network enables individuals to disseminate their ideas and advocate for change on scales previously unimaginable. Digital tools empower individuals to craft and present their self-narratives to a broad audience, actively shaping their identity rather than passively accepting a role assigned by society. Through blogs, podcasts, and social media, people can express their existential choices and share experiences that demonstrate their commitment to their personal values. The role of technology within existentialism also extends to education and self-exploration. Digital artifacts like ebooks, podcasts, and online courses can provide exposure to existentialism and its concepts, opening doors for individuals to explore these ideas autonomously. The interactive nature of certain technologies allows for a deeper engagement with philosophical texts and discourses, which can foster a more profound understanding of existentialism. In this way, technology serves as a democratizing force, providing access to philosophical education that was once restricted to certain academic or cultural institutions. But technology also raises existential questions about the future of humanity. As biotechnology and artificial intelligence continue to develop, the line between human and machine becomes increasingly ambiguous. This blurring raises ethical and existential dilemmas. Are we as humans abdicating our existential duties by outsourcing decision-making to machines? As we integrate technology more deeply into our bodies and minds, at what point might we lose the essence of what it means to live an authentically human life? There is an emergent concern that with the dominance of technology, society may drift towards what Heidegger described as Gestalt, or the enframing that reduces the world to a standing reserve. If technology overwhelms human purpose, there's a risk it might dictate the definition of a meaningful life. Such a prospect is antithetical to existentialism, which posits that understanding life's value is derived from individual engagement with the world rather than compliance with an imposed order or purpose. Ultimately, existentialism necessitates an ongoing examination of the human condition, which includes an introspection into the effects of technology. It compels us to ask how we might live a genuine life within a technological society, maintaining an awareness of how these tools shape our perceptions and decisions. The measure of technology's worth should be gauged by its capacity to facilitate human freedom and the pursuit of authenticity. Each technological advancement should be assessed for its potential to enhance or diminish the existential qualities of choice, responsibility, and meaning. Engaging with technology in this way requires individuals to be both critical and conscious of its implications, using it in service of existential ideals rather than surrendering to it. In essence, technology's role in the context of existentialism is multifaceted. It presents challenges that test the bounds of our freedom and authenticity, but it also provides opportunities to transcend traditional limitations and to pursue our existential projects in novel ways. As technology becomes ever more embedded in the fabric of society, the existential imperative to navigate its landscape with intention and reflection becomes more pronounced. This requires adapting our understanding of existentialism to incorporate modern technological contexts, ensuring that we continue to uphold the values of autonomy and personal meaning in an increasingly digitized world. 8.9 Urban Existentialism. Urban existentialism examines how existentialist thought intersects with the experience of living in an urban environment. Big cities uniquely influence their inhabitants' perception of being, freedom, and the other themes central to existentialist philosophy. By navigating these vast human-made landscapes, individuals find themselves confronting anonymity, alienation, and the constant negotiation of personal identity, amidst a multitude that may seem indifferent to their existence. The city, as a concentrated hub of human activity, brings to the forefront the concept of the crowd as described in existentialist literature. It is within the bustling crowds that individuals are often faced with a profound sense of insignificance. This feeling stems from the realization of being one among millions, where one's actions appear inconsequential on the grand urban stage. Yet it is also here in the city that existential freedom becomes palpable as individuals realize the multiplicity of choices before them, from paths to pursue, relationships to forge, or the myriad of ways to lead one's life. In the urban context, the imposition of systems and structures presents a challenge to existential authenticity. Cities operate on a complex web of rules and norms that govern everything from traffic to social interactions. The tension arises when individuals perceive these structures as restrictive, prompting them to seek authenticity through personal rebellion or retreat into subcultures that reject mainstream values. This quest for authenticity often becomes a central narrative of urban life, as individuals strive to carve out a unique existence that resonates with their core beliefs and values. Alienation is another theme that looms large in urban existentialism. Amidst the anonymity of city life, individuals may feel disconnected from the community and society at large. Such alienation can lead to a deeper examination of one's purpose and place in the world. The urban environment, in its scope and complexity, often requires one to confront the absurdity of existence as defined by existentialists, and to find personal meaning in an indifferent universe. This sense of alienation can be both a source of despair and a catalyst for profound self-realization. Urban existentialism also grapples with the overwhelming abundance of stimuli in the city. The constant barrage of sights, sounds, and experiences can lead to sensory overstimulation, which forces individuals to question the significance of their particular experiences. This introspection can yield a greater understanding of one's subjective reality, emphasizing the importance of individual perspective, a concept at the heart of existentialist thought. The city as a socioeconomic entity inevitably influences its dwellers' understanding of freedom. While offering a vast array of life choices, urban life does impose economic constraints that can limit personal freedom. Economic disparities are often more visible in urban settings, highlighting the existential challenge of pursuing one's authentic project within the limitations of one's circumstances. Thus, existentialists are compelled to consider how freedom is exercised when financial and social resources are unevenly distributed. Existentialist discourse often centers on the concept of individual responsibility. In the city, this responsibility can manifest as civic engagement or social activism, born from the recognition of the connectedness of urban lives. The responsibility to the other, a fundamental existential tenet, takes on practical applications as individuals navigate the coexistence of diverse cultures, economic statuses, and ideologies within a shared urban space. Isolation, a recurrent subject in existentialism, often contrasts sharply with the physical proximity inherent in urban living. While physical boundaries between individuals may diminish in the city, psychological boundaries can be heightened. The paradox of feeling alone in a crowd underscores the theme of isolation and its importance in the search for self-understanding and genuine interpersonal connections. Cityscapes themselves can serve as metaphors for existentialist concepts. Tall structures and busy streets can represent humanity's relentless struggle for achievement and recognition, an eternal reach for essence amidst existence. Moreover, the ever-changing urban landscape can symbolize the fluidity and impermanence that existentialism embraces, the idea that essence is not fixed and that existence precedes essence. Lastly, urban existentialism recognizes the impact of urban lifestyles on one's consciousness and worldview. The pace of life, cultural exposure, and the multitude of narratives playing out in a city shape how individuals perceive and interpret their existence. An urban setting provides a rich tapestry against which existentialist ideas can be explored, rendering the city a poignant backdrop for the dramatization of human freedom, isolation, and quest for meaning. Urban existentialism is a fruitful area of study that brings the broader philosophical movement of existentialism into a specific, concrete realm. It provides insight into how urban environments shape individual and collective experiences of freedom, choice, isolation, authenticity, and meaning. By considering how city living influences a person's existential condition, it is possible to better comprehend how one constructs a sense of self in the modern world and how one navigates the intersecting pressures of individual desires and societal expectations. 8.10 Environmental concerns. In discussing existentialism in the context of environmental concerns, it is paramount to recognize the inherent responsibility that existentialist philosophy places on the individual. Central to existentialist thought is the idea that humans have freedom of choice and are responsible for the consequences of their actions. This existential freedom suggests that individuals have a role to play in addressing environmental issues. Unlike deterministic viewpoints that absolve individuals of responsibility by attributing environmental degradation to broader systemic or natural processes, existentialism holds each person accountable for their impact on the planet. As environmental concerns such as climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution become ever more pressing, individual decision-making gains importance. An existentialist perspective emphasizes that, though one may feel overwhelmed by the scale of environmental problems, their choices still matter. This aligns with the concept of personal responsibility, which suggests that acknowledging the environmental impact of one's lifestyle choices is a crucial first step. From an existentialist standpoint, every action or inaction contributes to the shaping of the world and the environment, reinforcing the significance of personal accountability. The freedom that existentialism espouses is not merely about the ability to choose, but encompasses the recognition of the weight and implications of those choices. As such, environmental degradation can be seen as partially rooted in the collective negligence of individual responsibility. When individuals fail to recognize their role in the problem, this negligence manifests in environmentally harmful practices persisting unchallenged. An existentialist approach would demand that individuals confront the uncomfortable truth that their everyday choices, from consumption habits to modes of transportation, have ecological repercussions. Furthermore, the existentialist focus on authenticity involves living in a manner consistent with one's values. For those who value environmental sustainability, this implies an alignment between belief and practice. Authenticity in the existential sense would mean actively engaging with environmental concerns rather than passively acknowledging them. This could involve making more sustainable choices, advocating for environmentally friendly policies, or educating others about the importance of conserving natural resources. Existentialism also touches upon the concept of despair, which in the environmental context can mean the recognition of the severity and seeming intractability of ecological issues. However, despair in the existential sense is not a call to inaction. Rather, it can precipitate a more profound commitment to change. By not resigning to despair, individuals reaffirm their responsibility and capacity for action in the face of environmental crises. Essentially, existentialism suggests that despair be used as a catalyst for personal and collective action toward environmental preservation. The environmental crisis also calls into question the existential concept of alienation. Industrialization and urbanization have, in many ways, alienated individuals from nature and subsequently, from understanding their place within the natural world. This disconnect may contribute to environmental neglect, as there is often a lack of immediate personal connection to the larger consequences of environmental degradation. An existentialist approach would advocate for a reintegration of individuals with the environment, fostering a sense of interconnectivity and interdependence. Moving from the individual to the societal level, existentialism has implications for how communities and governments address environmental issues. The philosophy underscores the need for authentic collective engagement with these concerns. Politicians and policymakers are, in affect, entrusted with the existential responsibility to enact and enforce regulations that protect the environment, reflecting the collective will and ethical stance of the people they represent. Here, existentialism intersects with democratic principles, where the responsibility for environmental stewardship is also a matter of civic duty and societal ethics. The topic of environmental justice is pertinent within existential discussions, as environmental hazards often disproportionately affect marginalized communities. An existentialist framework would challenge societies to consider who bears the burden of environmental consequences, and to recognize that inaction or improper actions contribute to existential guilt. This concept compels individuals and communities to confront the ethical dimensions of environmental inequality and to strive for a more equitable distribution of environmental risks and benefits. Moreover, existentialism calls for an examination of cultural and philosophical assumptions underlying environmental policies. It prompts a critical look at consumerism, disposability, and the incessant drive for economic growth, all of which may contribute to environmental degradation. The existential challenge is to create and maintain societal structures that not only value but are also conducive to sustainable practices and environmental resilience. Lastly, confronting environmental concerns requires grappling with questions of meaning and legacy. The existential notion that life is what one makes of it extends to the idea that individuals play a key role in shaping the future of the environment. Thus, there exists an existential imperative to consider the long-term implications of current actions and to act in ways that ensure a livable planet for future generations. This forward-looking aspect of existentialism underscores the urgency of environmental conservation as part of the broader search for meaning and purpose in the human experience. Environmental concerns are deeply entwined with existentialist philosophy. The emphasis on individual responsibility, the pursuit of authenticity, the challenge of despair, and the quest for meaning all have profound implications for how individuals and societies engage with ecological issues. The existential perspective offers a valuable lens through which to view our relationship with the environment, urging a thoughtful, responsible, and ethical approach to ensuring the well-being of the planet.